and welcome to Last Mixtape. My name is Stephen White, and on this week's show, we delve into U2's most recent statement on Gaza through the lens of their work in Sarajevo in the 1990s. But first,
U2 brought the reality of the war to London's Wembley Stadium last night with a live satellite link from the city. The 72,000-strong concert crowd fell silent when Bono introduced three women from the war-torn region.
We were asked to go and play a gig in Sarajevo a few weeks ago, and then we were told not to go because things had gotten so bad there. And so anyway, we sent a satellite dish down there instead, just to try and keep in touch with some friends of ours we have down there about what's going on, see if it reads the same as it does in the papers and on TV.
My name is Elma, and I'm Muslim, only by name. I'm not religious. These are my friends. Ole is Serb, and the other is half Croat, half Serb. We have been friends for 25 years, and in this war, our friendship became stronger and deeper. Although they want to separate us into three nationality countries, but we want to live together, and we shall live together. For the rest of our lives. We still here and stay here.
I'm sorry. Nobody knows what the is going on. All we know is we've left you there, and we have no answers for you, and we feel rather ridiculous tonight being in a rock and roll band in this fantasy of ZooTV with your reality there in Sarajevo.
But an exchange between U2 frontman Bono and Sarajevans live on stage in 1993. Why, dear listener, and indeed, dear viewer, were you just listening to a clip from U2's ZooTV Tour? Well, this week, I thought we'd delve into U2's most recent statement on Gaza and how it plays out when put through the lens of their work in Sarajevo in the early 1990s. Before we begin the show, I should say I am a huge U2 fan. I've done videos in the past on this very channel about them, about Stay Far Away So Close and Hold Me, Kiss Me, Kill Me, Thrill Me, and I've always been a big fan of their work. But I have to say, their approach to Gaza has left me as a fan feeling cold, and that there is a dissonance between their past work and now. In the heart of 1993, the Bosnian War raged and Sarajevo was a city under siege. The longest in modern history, 1,425 days of shells, sniper fire and starvation. Close to 14,000 people would lose their lives during the siege. 5,434 of them were civilians. In the infamous Sniper Alley, where crossing the street could mean your last breath, Admira Eshmic and Boško Brkic tried to escape the conflict. Their escape ended in tragedy. Both were shot dead on May 18, 1993, as they tried to cross Verbanja Bridge. The couple, immortalised in the documentary Romeo and Juliet in Sarajevo, were cut down by a sniper's bullet, their bodies lying intertwined for days under the eyes of the world. Yet beneath the violence, art survived as an act of defiance. That same month, deep underground in a candlelit basement, Sarajevo's young women gathered for the Miss Sarajevo beauty pageant, themselves hiding from sniper fire. Outside, mortars fell. Inside, satin dresses and lipstick became weapons of a different sort. The winner, 17-year-old Inila Nojic, stood alongside her other contestants, holding a banner that read, "Don't let them kill us." Their message, half plea, half dare, ricocheted across radio waves and foreign news wires, a photograph of resistance in both mind and body. Years later, that image will be set to music by Passengers and Luciano Pavarotti in Miss Sarajevo, but we'll get to that. As Sarajevo endured bombardment and a population was running on the thinnest thread of hope, an unlikely observer stepped into the darkness. Bill Carter, an American aid worker filming secret acts of resistance, art and survival, documented the misbesieged Sarajevo contest. Taking a long shot, Carter reached out to U2 during their ZooTV Tour, one of the most spectacular worldwide concert tours of the decade. There he reminded Bono what a unified Europe means if countries like Bosnia right on its margins are forgotten. The band wanted to go to Sarajevo, but the siege made that too dangerous, so instead they brought Sarajevo to the world. A satellite dish was shipped to the besieged city, and with it access to European airwaves. Starting on July 17, 1993 in Bologna, the giant screens that blasted multimedia messages throughout U2's ostentatious ZooTV Tour flickered then glowed with faces lit by candlelight. Those alive staring into the lens in horror and exhaustion, an unflinching, inescapable dose of reality. Bono, for his part, dressed in leather with slicked back hair, looked every bit the rock star pastiche he wished to subvert moderated proceedings in a rock and roll fantasy while the people of Sarajevo stare across from bomb-scarred streets. Those in the arena were forced to stop rocking and listen to unscripted cries from the edge of humanity. The reaction was fractured. The Edge later said that link-ups were visual dissonance, a bucket of cold water on a crowd wired for entertainment. At one show in Wembley, Sarajevo voices pierced through. 3 women spoke to Bono. "We know you'll go back to your rock show and forget us, and we'll die." In that silence, the weight of what U2 had done became urgent. International media circled, some accusing U2 of exploiting suffering, but critics and fans alike could not unsee what metal and melody had revealed. From those stark ushers of reality emerged Miss Sarajevo, a requiem fashioned in defiance. Under the name Passengers, U2 and Brian Eno, joined by Luciano Pavarotti, wove the pageant's courage into music. It was an elegy for a city that refused to lose its soul, even under siege. When the war finally ended in early 1996, the song remained, not just as a memory, but as a statement. Sarajevo had one more chapter to write with U2. In 1997, the band finally played the city they had once reached by satellite. The stadium, packed with 45,000 people, some still carrying the grief of those they'd lost. Bono called it the loudest whisper of peace he ever heard. Midway through the show, he invited Inila Nojic, no longer a 17-year-old standing in the candlelight basement, but a woman in the open air of a free city, onto the stage. The banner was gone, but the message endured. And for U2, Sarajevo became a touchstone, a reminder that their music could be more than entertainment, that when they chose to speak or give their platform for others to speak, the world might be forced to listen. That sense of responsibility, of bearing witness through music, has followed U2 through the decades' recordings and performances. And now, in 2025, it has followed them right to the conflict in Gaza. But this time, it feels like the language is different, the response is measured, and the unfiltered, raw feel of what they did before no longer exists. Before we get into this, I should say that I don't want to deter anyone from changing their mind on this conflict so late into it. I think no matter when it happens, it is important, and it is important to speak on it when you come to that conclusion. Reconsidering your perspective and changing the way you look at things is important, and speaking up always carries weight. My problem is with the methodology and the process and the wording of how U2 have approached this. With Sarajevo, U2's response was unflinching and raw. They gave their mic, their stage, to the people besieged in Sarajevo and let them speak for themselves. With Gaza, it is far more removed, it is far colder, and it feels more like a press release than a statement. But with Gaza, the band waited, and what has eventually come out feels a lot more measured, a lot more careful, and a lot more politically driven than what they did back then. The voice is no longer of the people, it is speaking to governments over their heads and forgetting them in the conversation. U2's statement on the recent violence in Gaza, released on August 10th, recognises suffering with caveats and calls for a return to reason from the unreasonable. Bono's message, the longest of the 4, is telling in itself. He reflected on having circled the subject for months, until witnessing starving children in Gaza evoked memories of visiting famine-affected Ethiopia. He condemned both Hamas and the Israeli government's use of starvation as a weapon, calling Israel's actions a moral failure and pledging support for medical aid for Palestinians. The Edge went further, denouncing the situation as an unmistakable moral crisis, highlighting dangers of ethnic cleansing and the erosion of Israel's democratic legitimacy. Adam Clayton and Larry Mullen Jr. added their voices, likening Israel's military response to revenge and emphasising that preserving children's life is a choice in this war. Larry concluded, "Silence serves none of us." Yet the language raises questions. Calling the situation uncharted territory frames what is happening as unfamiliar, as if the bombing of civilians, the destruction of homes and hospitals, displacement, and the acts of recognised war crimes are somehow new. The words infer that everything up to this point had been somewhat acceptable, as if the lives lost at the hands of the IDF due to violence and bombing could be danced around, or were an expected response to October 7th, sidestepping history out of narrative convenience. And the slow, agonising death from famine and starvation was a tangent into that unreasonable territory. A kind of, if you're going to die, best do it quickly and buried beneath a rubble mentality. Bono's call for Israel to return to reason risks othering Palestinian people, placing them outside the moral frame rather than centering them within the conflict, merely reducing Benjamin Netanyahu's policies to unreasonable. The statement reads as if the conflict only began on October 7th, when in reality the roots in systemic suffering and the long history of occupation and blockade stretched back decades in which U2 were silent, framing it as a moment in time and flattening the complexity and for some softening the moral urgency. In the shadow of their own history, a history of cutting through political noise with moral certainty not only seen in Miss Sarajevo but also songs like Sunday Bloody Sunday, Mothers of the Disappeared and Bullet the Blue Sky, it reads differently. Less like a rallying cry and more like a careful press release after the fact and when it is felt safe to do so. And this all brings me back to Sarajevo and brings me back to those stagings at ZooTV as U2 beamed a satellite across the world into a besieged territory, and that the people in that territory speak out to their audience. I think that's an incredibly powerful thing to watch and to look back on. And that's why it so contrasts so strongly with what is happening in their response to Gaza. I feel that the people of Palestine, the people who are themselves under siege, the people who are starving, the people who have been bombed, the people who have been killed, are not being spoken to, are not being talked to. U2 are not shining a light on those people because it feels like they are scared of what they might say. The moments in which Bono spoke to those people in Sarajevo, and you can say it's right or you can say it's wrong or you can say whatever about it, it does feel like it's a completely unrehearsed, raw thing. That those people were liable at any time to say anything. Indeed, when those women said that you'll go back to your rock show and we'll be dead, is so striking but so true and so raw. It's uncomfortable. It's not speaking about the powers above them, the machinations and the violence and the governments and everything else. Obviously, the people who are perpetrating it. It is speaking of the real world need of those people. And I wonder if Bono and them really meant any of this. Would they do the same thing? Would they, when they were playing the Sphere in Las Vegas, beam into Rafah or into Gaza or into cities across the region and speak directly to people affected, to people working in the hospitals, to the people in the hospitals, to people who have been bombed? Would they allow that unfiltered access on stage to be spoken to their fans and indeed to be spoken to them? Those Sarajevans in that moment were speaking to Bono too, and making him feel uncomfortable in the moment. Maybe making him feel and question his motives and question his way about things and his own privilege within the area. I'm a huge U2 fan. I've seen them live, I have their records, I've done videos, as I said earlier, on the past about them. I love their music. And one of the things I loved about their music, and I've defended them constantly about this, is I think the political edge of their music. I've always felt that they've spoken out, or they've, when they had the opportunity, done good and tried to do good. Nobody can perfectly do that. It's such a complex thing when you're dealing with governments and you're dealing with peoples and you're dealing with supply and aid and all those things. I'm not naive to believe that there isn't politics involved in that and politics in getting things done. Indeed, you see that in Bono's book, Surrender. He speaks about the complexities of that. And I was thinking about Surrender too while I was kind of writing this piece, and obviously this is the more ad-libbed bit of it. But I was thinking about that book. I read it a couple of summers ago. And I remember feeling that I loved the first 2/3 of it. That Bono growing up, his life, which mirrors a lot of my own life growing up, as well as the band getting together, the meaning behind their songs, the meaning behind Sunday Bloody Sunday, speaking against sectarian violence and how that put him in an uncomfortable position at the time. They also speak about Sarajevo right up to the Octung Baby Zooropa era. And I thought that was an incredibly powerful thing about the book and an incredible insight. But the final third of the book is entirely or mostly about Bono and his dealings with politicians and rich people. And you can feel that over time that whilst Bono is an intelligent person, that the people he's dealing with, these politicians and stuff like that, have the cult of personality about them and can weave people any way they want. He speaks in glowing terms about Condoleezza Rice and George W. Bush, and as well as Warren Buffett. These are things that do not feel like they're connected anymore to the people that he is trying to help, and even if he is helping them in that moment. I feel the same way about his response to Gaza in reference to that to Sarajevo. Those people were put front and centre. They were allowed to speak for themselves, even if it made Bono uncomfortable or it made the people he was politically aligned with feel uncomfortable. And I think, wouldn't it be such a powerful thing if they forgot about this statement and their next tour, they're not touring right now or they're not playing right now, or the next show, if they ever play Las Vegas again, or even on their social media, if they gave that over in a similar way than they did at ZooTV, they stopped their show, if they stopped everything and allowed people in Palestine tell them what is happening and tell them their experience of things, would they, the people of Palestine, see it as unreasonable or uncharted territory? Would they see the bombing of hospitals as to be expected, in the words of, I believe, Larry Mullen in his piece, that it's an expected response to what Hamas did? It might be expected, but for the people who died, it was everything. I don't think every single band everywhere have to give you their opinion on politics. If recent years have told me anything, I don't really care what famous people think about anything. But if your art, and a lot of your art, is based on those types of things, is based on calling that out, is based on helping people, especially as U2 have done in the past. I referenced mothers that had disappeared, about Argentina and Chile and the mothers looking for the sons and the children they have lost during the dictatorships in those regions. Bullet the Blue Sky about El Salvador, and obviously, as I said, Sunday Bloody Sunday. Those are about the people caught up in those conflicts. Those are about the personal stories. They're not speaking directly to the governments in charge. They are speaking about and for, in some cases, the people in that area. I think that's what's so powerful about that when you watch those clips of the Sarajevans in ZooTV. And I can't help but feel when I watch that how far removed their statement about Gaza is and how much it dehumanises the people of Gaza. They are seen as mere pawns almost. And he does, I have to say, he does call out that there needs to be humanitarian aid left. And I've seen as well in the Ivor Novello speech that he speaks about getting rid of Benjamin Netanyahu, which I would agree with. I would agree with all of those things. And I think it should be given, its due that those things have been said. It is late in the day, and a lot of people have said that, but it does feel also late in the day and quite weak. And I don't blame people for looking at it and thinking, are you just hedging your bets? Are you just looking at the way history is going and, well, we better look like we said something at the time? But I can't help but feel when I'm watching it and I read through that statement, wouldn't it be so powerful if U2 did the same thing and let the people of Gaza speak to them and speak to the world? In the 90s, U2 didn't wait for the safe moment. They hijacked their own show, pointed a satellite feed into a war zone and let Sarajevo speak for itself. Unfiltered, unedited, undeniable. They didn't worry about the optics, they didn't workshop the statement, they told the truth. But when Gaza is being flattened, when its children are buried beneath concrete, when its hospitals are bombed in plain sight, U2 wait. And when the statement finally comes, it's laced with euphemisms. The slaughter of civilians is uncharted territory, as if mass killing becomes acceptable once it's on the map. Bono urges Israel to return to reason, othering Palestinians as bystanders to their own genocide. Imagine if they'd done in 2025 what they did in 1993. Imagine a U2 on stage in Berlin or Dublin with a live feed to Rafah. Imagine Palestinian voices speaking directly to the crowd, no PR filter, no diplomatic framing. Would Bono listen? Would he give them the mic? Or would the words be too raw, too politically costly? And it's not just U2. Bob Geldof and Tom York and others waited months to say what should have been said from day one. They didn't risk the booze, the headlines, the sponsorships. They waited for the moment when speaking out cost nothing, but would be historically advantageous to point back on if questioned. The younger generation hasn't. Kneecap, Bob Vylan, Fontaines D.C, the murder capital, CMAT et al. They've spoken in the middle of the fire, not after the ashes have settled. They've named the violence for what it is. They've taken the hits. That's what solidarity looks like. And next week, we'll see what courage costs. Mo Cara of Kneecap will stand trial for his words, for speaking plainly to British imperialism in Belfast. Silence has consequence, but so too does speech. And history will remember not just what you said, but whether you said it when it mattered most. So it goes, and there it went. U2's statement on Gaza. Now, I fully understand that U2 are not going to watch this video or hear my pleas for them to do the same for people of Gaza than what they did with the Sarajevans during the Bosnian War. But I do think it's a point worth making. And I think it's a point worth making, especially if you are watching and you are a fan and you are, like me, conflicted about how they have treated the situation. It to me looks like in the past they have used their stage and used their platform, to use a more modern kind of version of all of those types of things, to let people in war-torn zones speak and be heard. And for me, it's telling that in this instance, many years later, they haven't done that. And maybe that's something they have lost along the way in the 30 years since that instance, that they have lost a connection with the people that they are trying to speak about or trying to help. And maybe getting back to that is a way back. So what about you? What do you think about U2's statement on Gaza? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Do you think it hits the right meter? Do you think it's completely off? Do you think it's weak, too little, too late? Do you think they mean it? What do you think? Let me know in the comments below.
كانت صعبة، بقينا نصحى بالجوع وننام بالجوع، كله كانت جوع عمي تقول لي روحي يعني عبي ماي دوبي بدي أشيل سطلين أقع. لو قعدت أنا من دو أجيب لهم حطب، من دو أعبي لهم ماي، فيش أنا اللي شايلة.